Hey guys! So today we're going to do a little bit of glass etching, and so I wanted to show you the technique that I was going to use. I wanted to etch this onto this side of a glass jar. I want to put dog treats in it, and so I'm going to put my dog's name on it. And I didn't want just his name, and I wanted this paw print there as well, but you can't really etch this without it looking like a blob. If I were to etch it as it is, you would just get something that looked kind of like this. So what we need to do is we need to do an offset and a subtraction. So I have chosen my font, and this is Back to Black. It's a free font. I'll post a link to it down in the description, and then just a random paw print. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with welding my text. You cannot tell from here, but if I were to make this transparent, you can see here with the script font where your letters overlap, you have these little lines, and it's going to cut those, and so those little pieces are going to be hard to keep together. And so what we want to do is weld. So we're going to right click and weld, and you can see that it makes it one piece. So those are no longer an issue. Just going to go back to black here, and I'm going to offset. So we're going to open up our offset panel, and I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to use the arrow keys here to create an offset, the thickness that I want. There's no right or wrong here. It's personal preference, whatever interests you. I want it thick enough that it's going to kind of help differentiate them, but not so thick that it doesn't look good. So let's do 0.015, and then I'm going to apply. So to make it easier, I'm going to select the offset, and I'm going to change the color. Let's just make it blue so it stands out. Now I'm going to select the offset and the paw print, and I'm going to open the modify panel, and we're going to click subtract all. And it doesn't look like it did anything, but now you can just delete that offset out. And so now what we have is this border around our name, so that when we etch, it's all going to be apparent what we have. So now it's going to look like this on the etching. So you can see if you'd made your offset bigger, this gap would have been larger. So it's totally personal preference. Play around with it, see what you like. But this is it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out, and I have made the box here the size of the area that I have to etch. So I could make this a little bigger if I wanted to. You just want to make sure that you're sizing it all together so that it doesn't get out of proportion. And actually we're going to group this so I don't mess it up. But we are going to cut that, and then we're going to go in the kitchen and we're going to etch. Okay, so we have our decal cut, and as you can see, I weeded out the inside part instead of the outside because this is the part that we want to etch. And so what I want to do is, first we're going to clean the glass. So this is the little treat jar that I'm making. I'm just going to take an alcohol pad and clean the glass where we're going to put it. And then while that's drying, I'm going to do the app tape on my decal. And this is, again, my new favorite app tape. I absolutely love it. This is from 651 Vinyl. It's a medium tack clear app tape, and it is awesome. When I cut a piece and I have like a little bit left over, I usually just stick it back on the roll. That one's not quite wide enough. Just cut a piece off here. Burnish that down, and I'm going to trim. So we are working with a very small space, and I do have some little ridges around the area that I want to etch, and so that really helps as far as lining it up. But I'm going to show you a trick. Turn this around so you guys can see it. So assuming we weren't working with an area that made it very easy, we're going to use the hinge method, and I do have a video. It was one of my very first videos on the hinge method. It's just grab some, you can use painter's tape, masking tape, washi tape. You can even use a piece of like paper transfer tape. But if you lay it on your design, and I'm going to kind of go off to the right, but line it up where you want it, and then tape it down. So that way you can go in, you can peel this back and cut off some ab tape and then burnish that side down. And then pull this off, and I'm going to save this because we're going to use this again in a minute. And then you can lift up the other side and burnish it down, and that just helps you get things centered before you've made it so it's going to stick. Just going to burnish that down real good, and then we'll take off the ab tape, and this ab tape just comes right off. There's no fighting with it. I absolutely love this stuff. You get 30 feet for less than $10. It's amazing. You can use the same piece a few times if you're doing something, a project where you're repeating, but I don't hold on to it unless I'm going to use it right away. Okay, so then we're going to take our painter's tape and we're going to tape off the edge, because anything that your etching cream touches is going to be etched, and so we want to protect everything outside that area. And you could cut your vinyl so that you have a bigger cushion around it if you wanted to. I just used a scrap piece of vinyl that was just the right size that I needed, so I didn't have any extra area to use. We're just going to put this tape down, and this is just this is Duck brand blue painter's tape. You can use scrap pieces of vinyl, you can use masking tape, whatever, just something to do that barrier with. Get that area protected. You don't need to go out any further than that. It should be more than enough. And then going to get our gloves, just a safety precaution with the etching cream. You have to think that it is strong enough to etch glass. You don't necessarily want it on your hands, and that's why I'm in the kitchen today as well, because we do need access to water, and in my studio I don't have easy access to water. So I have this little towel out so that I don't scratch up my jar on the counter, or if I drip something, I'm not going to drip my etching cream on the counter. So this is the Armor Etch. There's a couple different brands you can get. This is a 10-ounce jar. Amazon, Michaels, AC Moore, Hobby Lobby, they all carry it. And so there's some different tools that you can use to apply it. You can use a paintbrush, any kind of paintbrush. You can use cotton swabs. I've used makeup sponges to apply, but you do want to stir. So I'm going to stir it up. It does have a little bit of an odor. Depends on how sensitive to smells you are. You do want to do it somewhere that's well ventilated. The jars have about a year shelf life. It kind of starts to crystallize inside. So You don't buy a huge giant jar if you're not going to be able to use it up. And so I'm just going to use a brush, and you want to put it on thick, not thin. This is not the time to be stingy with product, especially in these large areas here. You have to go really thick because this is not made to etch big huge areas. You wouldn't want to etch like an entire mirror or window because it's not going to necessarily give you a nice even etching. But hopefully we're going to get this good today. So I'm just putting it on really thick. Just going to brush that on. You can scrape off the product at the end and put it back in the jar if you want to. Again, this stuff only has about a year shelf life. So you don't want to save it for years and years and years. So I usually just trash it, or it goes down the drain or whatever. But you want to get this on nice and thick. And I do have a few little crystals in mine. Mine's almost a year old. So you want to be, if you get some crystals, try to get them off the area you want to etch. And you'll find conflicting answers of how long to leave it on. The company will say 1 minute. I've found that 1 minute doesn't etch it like I want it to. And I generally go about 5 minutes, and about halfway through, I go in and kind of agitate the etching cream that's on the item. These big areas, I just really want to make sure they're covered properly. Okay, so I'm just going to brush that back into the jar. And we're going to let it sit for about 2.5 to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to come in and kind of move it around. Okay, so I'm going to kind of agitate this cream, move it around. And I didn't mention this earlier, I'm using 651. I just went into my scrap bucket to find a scrap I had that was about the size I needed. You could do 651, you could do 631, you could do 751 or 951. You could even use Oramask 811, which is for etching. That's really good if you're sandblasting. But again, just some scrap vinyl, some colors that maybe you bought a kit with all the colors in it and there's a color you're just not going to use. So it'd be the perfect project to use that on. Just kind of moving it around again, and we're going to wait about 2 more minutes and then we're going to take it off. Okay, so here we are at my sink, and what I'm going to do is, I don't want to just run the water over it immediately because I don't want it to accidentally touch down here. So I'm going to take a paper towel, and again, you could scrape this off and put it back in your jar if you wanted to, but this isn't a big project. I'm not losing a lot of product. But I'm going to wipe off what I can with my paper towel. And be careful, don't set this down on anything that's going to accidentally get etched by it. So you want to put that straight in the trash can. And then I'm going to rinse. It's really hard to tell while it's taped off if it etched or not. But if you really look hard, you can see that it has indeed etched. It's definitely got a more matte appearance than the parts that aren't etched. So now we're going to go back over and take off our stencil and see how it looks. Okay, so now that we have everything wiped off, we're going to take the stencil off. And you can take your gloves off. tweezers. And this was a really small area to etch. Another small area, wine glasses and rocks glasses and things like that are going to be small areas to etch. But casserole dishes and whatnot, I attempted to do this last week with a casserole dish from IKEA, but it did not etch. A lot of Pyrex will not etch as well. Some will. I'm not sure how to determine which ones will etch and which ones won't. Get this dried off. And it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good.